Yeah, it was much more like I was done.
Good evening and welcome to the Fairmont Area School Board meeting. For roll call, all members are present with the exception of Mari Myron. Please join me for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You have your minutes before you from our May 27th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 27th, 2025 meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Shayna. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. We have an agenda before you today.
I'll make,
Thank
second.
you. Thank you. We have a motion by Mike, second by Jen to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. For celebrations and school community reports, we have ICS here with a facilities project update.
We are on. Thanks for having us here tonight. We just wanted to provide an update on the facilities planning process. Finally kind of coming to the end of the process. It's hard to believe that it's been a little over a year since we've had initial conversations about things. It's been absolutely wonderful seeing things come together, and I think the result is something that's going to be a big benefit for the district as a whole. Tonight, we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the process timeline as a whole, some of the outcomes that we see in general categories. We'll talk through some of the work scopes and run through the diagrams briefly, provide a financial kind of snapshot and strategy. We have both Beth and Shelby from Ellers here tonight, so if there are questions or when we get to that point, we'll certainly have the ability to go through things, and then we'll talk about next steps in the process and all of the approvals. So just to touch on the timeline, and this is something that all of you have seen before, we won't go through it in detail, but again, started back in spring of 2024. As you recall, we went through some very detailed work doing on-the-ground assessments and surveys and educational adequacy, space analysis, went through many work sessions with staff, administration, committees of the school board, and then work sessions with you as a full board as well to go through things. One thing to point out is as we went through the process, I think one thing that we can take pride in is the fact that we were very deliberate in systematically going through and first identifying and quantifying all of the needs, making sure we had a thorough baseline with which to make decisions. Spent a lot of times and went through a lot of effort to prioritize things, making sure that we kept student education first and kind of keeping that student experience at the forefront. Prioritizing, finally, we went into developing different solution alternatives to meet those needs. And we worked through evaluation of several different funding options, and we've arrived at some process outcomes that we wanted to share with you tonight. Some of the outcomes, we've identified both short-term and long-term facility needs throughout the district. Through the prioritization, through the planning process, obviously we're not able to address anything and everything that was once seen on a list, but we wanted to make sure that we were looking at things that were educationally viable and that were fiscally responsible and that we were respectful of stakeholders and your tax base as well. When we look at prioritizing the needs, again, we did all of that with the focus of improving the student experience, but they really fall into three main categories. It's the infrastructure and physical needs, some of your systems. Second would be your educational and programmatic needs. And then third would be any safety or security or accessibility issues within the district. And I think what we've put together addresses things in those prioritized categories very well. From a funding standpoint, I think it became very clear to us and to the district that we really started to develop two parallel paths when it came to funding strategy, looking at board authorized funding of some of the infrastructure and IAQ work, and then considering voter approved referendum for the educational and some of the space and programmatic needs throughout the district. So what's being contemplated tonight is looking at moving forward with that HVAC and infrastructure work as soon as this fall from a design and development standpoint, and then the educational and programmatic needs would potentially be brought to the voters as soon as this November for consideration. Mike, do you want to walk through scopes?
So I'll walk through the scopes that were ultimately prioritized as we went through this process. But before we get into detail on that, just wanted to kind of give us some reference on the different ages of the facilities that we were dealing with. Over at the elementary, the majority of the facility was built in 1954. The very north wing is a two-story. Then came the 1970, the gym addition that was ultimately just accessed through a breezeway off of the 1954 building. Then in 2000, we infilled the courtyard that was present built with the 1954 building with the media center, and then ultimately in 2011, we put on the two-story elementary wing addition or early childhood wing addition and infilled the area between the 1970 gym and the 1954 addition. So the high school, the majority of that building was built in 1970. There was an addition when we did the elementary project that was put on that replaced or added a boiler room and receiving area, and then all the small satellite boilers that were scattered throughout the building were consolidated into one central heating plant. And then, of course, just added on not too long ago, the 1923 CTE edition, or 22-23 CTE edition at the very end of the vocational wing at the high school. So starting over at the elementary, we'll be, we have it broken down into the two different categories or parallel paths for funding that we talked about, the referendum improvements and the HVAC and infrastructure improvements. So we'll be ultimately updating all the HVAC systems in the perimeter classrooms and support spaces in the 1954 building, as well as in the music classrooms. These will eliminate the unit ventilators in those classrooms and allow you to get the dehumidifiers, the temporary dehumidifiers that are in each of those rooms, and address those indoor air quality issues. There are some building exterior improvements and repairs, caulking around windows, doors, paneling, some tuck pointing of the brick on the 54 portion, as well as the 2011 portion. There'll be some caulking around the windows just to make sure we're maintaining that structure and the superstructure and keeping water from permeating those. Replacing the original elevator in 1954, that is the original. You guys have been doing upgrades. It's not that everything in here, has just been left for, the past 75 plus years, but that elevator is original, and we just got notification here this year that, we can't get parts for that thing anymore, and the state is not allowing that to age of elevator to be there. So we will put a new elevator in. The shaft will be the same. It's just all the parts and pieces of that elevator and the cab will be replaced. Refurbish the flooring. This is the terrazzo flooring, cutting that, polishing it, and resealing it. Replacing the flooring in the cafeteria of the 1954 portion. And then also replacing the flooring in the northwest corridors outside the third grade rooms and the sixth grade classrooms. On the second floor, which is just at the very north end of the elementary, that floor is actually concrete, and then we'd be adding a tile into that instead of having the polished concrete there. And then finally, while we're in there and have the classrooms, torn apart and putting in this new HVAC system, we'd be upgrading the finishes within the classrooms, new tile and ceilings, lights, things like that. Over at the high school, we're looking at adding a new Fine Arts Learning Center addition. That would ultimately get you out of the basement of the high school where those programs are currently being held. That addition would hold the band, choir, theater, and orchestra programs. That addition also triggers the requirement for you guys to have a fire sprinkler system in the building. So we would be putting a sprinkler system throughout the building. We're also looking at adding windows to all of the exterior classrooms. Unfortunately, we did throw around a lot of different ideas to try and get some of that natural light into the interior classrooms, but none of them were real favorable. They would have involved, had a lot of roof penetrations. So we will add windows to all the exterior classrooms throughout the building. Because we're able to get out of that basement area, not much work will be done in the basement, but it will be repurposed for program support spaces and general storage. Also, along with adding the fire sprinkler to the building, we can now enclose the connection between the new CTE addition and the vocational wing. Before, it had to be left open because that, again, it would have triggered some code issues that would add a lot of cost to adding that CT addition. But now with the fire sprinkler, we can go ahead and close that and make it more passable for students during inclement weather. The shops were kind of one of the things that didn't get touched when we did the HVAC upgrade back in 2011. So those, we will be doing HVAC upgrades in the robotics shop, the welding shop, the small engine shop. And the art room that was converted into was converted from a shop into an art room. We'll just be replacing the unit for that. The actual HVAC infrastructure serving the art room is still good, but the air handling unit that is serving that room is still located in the small engine shop where it can suck in fumes and things like that. So we need to, and it's also original to the 1970 building, so we'll get that out of the small engine shop and relocate it. We'll also be adding new welding stations. The current ones don't do a great job of containing that welding smoke. And when you got a lot of welding going on, that room really fills up. Also, there'll be some exterior repairs and caulking throughout the building. Again, the windows that are there now would get caulked, the door frames. We'd be replacing some doors as well because those are still original. Looking at adding a secure entry and office addition. As you know, the way you get in now, we got to buzz in, and then there's really unlimited access to the building before they actually get into the office to check in. So move that out so that there is a secure entrance, and then get the office staff out into that addition. And then where the office staff is now, remodel that space for academic space and programs, student small group space, things like that. Refurbish the flooring in the vocational wings as well as the senior wing. And then we were having some problems with some of the sewer lines in the building, so we went ahead and had those scoped. The sewer line under the vocational wing, it's actually unfortunately under a concrete floor, so that floor has to be cut up to replace those sewer lines. They are sagging and starting to collapse on themselves, as well as the sewer lines and it'd be the west hall of the Fine Arts current Performing Arts Center. So we have to cut the floor there and to get those sewer lines replaced as well. The remaining sewer piping was still functioning and looked fairly good. We'll be updating the HVAC and the auxiliary gyms. Again, those are leftovers from the original building. Very hard to access for your maintenance staff to get repairs done on those. And also replacing the flooring in those two gyms with new athletic flooring. And then remodeling the locker rooms and going from the communal showers to individual shower stalls for student use. And then I believe that's about the sum of it. One thing though, with code, we do have to evaluate, there's a requirement for a portion of the additions to be built for a storm shelter because you are in a zone that the code was updated here a few years ago, and that'll be part of the project as we move forward and evaluating those designs. Just some renderings of potentially what it might, new secure entry and office addition might look like. We would keep the current rounded or U-shaped drop-off area and not impose into that area. So we come out to, as far as the sidewalks, it would be a single story. And again, just have one main entrance where everybody can go in and can't access the building unless they go in through the office first. And then, have obviously some, other student entries associated with that. As you know, the building is fairly void of windows in the classrooms, as we said. This is just a, kind of a rendering of what that would look like with the windows added on after the project is done. From a budget standpoint, this is kind of how we work to itemize each of the different improvements. Again, we have the HVAC and indoor air quality improvements, a majority of which is going to be at the elementary. That's going to total with bond issuance a little over $17 million. The remaining improvements that can't be done through the LTFM portion would then go to referendum, and that would be total about $22.4 million for ultimately a ballot question ask if that were to move forward. Questions?
We've got some financial information to run through too, and should we put you on the spot, Shelby, to run through?
So I think I'm gonna start
Laser
with,
doesn't work.
okay, that's okay. Usually when I present, I just do this, so you can't follow it anyway. So Beth and I worked with ICS then, and our role is just really to come in and think about, work together to think about which sort of bucket it fits best in terms of an issuance, and you as a board.
Can you introduce who you are to people that are
Yes,
maybe
yes.
watching this later?
Um,
We know who you are, but maybe
okay.
someone that watches this later doesn't.
So I'm Shelby McQuay, this is Beth Downs, and we're both with Ellers, and we're financial advisors to the district. We've worked with the district for quite some time now, I think starting with your past, a little bit before your past referendum on the CT addition. So we also have worked with ICS on quite a few projects, and so sort of tag teaming with them to look at the set of projects and then think about your community as a whole and your existing debt structure and where each of those projects might fit best in terms of board authority, in terms of the right type of statutory authority for those types of projects. So as this is laid out here in terms of the scope, I think it's important to note here that that the project costs total a different amount than the bond amount. So you will be able to pay cost of issuance out of the bond amount, which is why when you get to the issuance of the bond for the LTFM portion, and more importantly, what is communicated on the ballot language for the voter-approved amount is slightly different than what is going to actually go for projects. So as part of the voter-approved amount, it's always an amount of total debt that you would issue for that portion. And then similar in terms of the LTFM. So like I had said, in looking at how Fairmont schools is laid out, this is always a helpful place to start in terms of your overall tax base. So who is going to be paying the taxes towards that will go to make the payments on the bonds? And if you think of that market value, and there's several categories of property types in the state of Minnesota, but if you sort of put them into these high-level buckets, the market value of the district is sort of what you see if you sort of did a flyover. That's what you're made up of in terms of residential, agricultural, commercial, industrial. The referendum market value is a tax base that removes the ag land and the seasonal rec property for the most part, and so really it's the tax base that's made up of the resident and commercial, and just a certain portion of a school's levy falls on that, which is operating referendum, local optional revenue, that's 724, and then a small part in the equity. Then on the net tax capacity, that's where we think about the taxes that are contributed, say for instance on a $200,000 home, are not quite as much as a $200,000 business. So that business is taxed at a little higher proportion than a home, and then on a $100,000 or $200,000 ag parcel, it's a little bit less. And then in fact, the most recent legislative change that is very impactful for Fairmont area taxpayers is the school building bond agricultural credit, and that provides a 70% reduction on the portion of agricultural taxes that go to debt. So anything that goes into that debt category, that property tax owner will see an automatic reduction on their tax payments. It's not a refund that they have to pay in and then qualify for. It's an automatic credit, so it comes off right at the top. So that 70% credit for agricultural property, when you have nearly 40% in qualifying ag, the ag to school credit, or the amount coming from the general fund to the school district, not from taxpayers, is over 25%. So that's a really helpful component to paying debt and reducing the reducing the tax payment that agricultural property would pay, and then doesn't shift it to other parts of your property owners. So that's the really helpful part, and I will
Just
just.
another easier way of saying that is that 25% of this project will be paid for by the state of Minnesota and not the local taxpayers?
Correct. That is the most straightforward way to say it. I would note the non-qualifying agricultural property is 1.7%. That's the house, garage, and 1 acre, and that's the portion that they pay that looks just like any other residential property in the district. So, and as part of fitting this project in terms of your existing debt, you have 4 bonds outstanding that are levied on your tax base, and then an LTFM bond that you have already outstanding that is levied against your per pupil amount. That's those gray bars there. And then as a board, you have the authority to issue certain types of, or you issue debt for certain types of projects that would be indoor air quality, like you've looked at tonight. And then the most recent change from the legislature last night that is being presented to the governor is to allow you to pay for roofing projects over $100,000 per site that could act as just the board authority, just like the indoor air quality projects. So a narrow scope of projects for which you to maintain your buildings that the legislature allows school boards to do. And that's proposed in orange here. A little bit shorter in term is what is how we've outlined it here. You have flexibility as a board to structure those as you see fit, and the proposed nature here would just be to keep those a little bit shorter than the voter approved, partly to match the lifetime of the projects. And what that does in total is increase the taxes to the school district taxpayers, and for the board approved IAQ bonds, that's a 17 tax levies that are proposed here for $200,000. On a $200,000 property would be $107, and then the voter approved portion, if you moved ahead with that vote in November, would be $86 for a total of a little less than $200 per year. And then that agricultural portion on the homestead and non-homestead, that is the amount of the net, so taken after that school building bond agricultural credit. So that is that's 75% of the project that's levied on the tax base. I think it's important to note too that that does include principal and interest, right? You're not just paying the principal back, you're paying principal and interest, and the tax impact reflects that. So we're happy to answer any questions on that or tag team here with ICS. So. All right, or we could move on to next steps.
Next steps. So, as I mentioned early on, we're kind of to the point where we're culminating the process here. Next steps as listed over the next month and a half would be to move forward with some of the more formal approvals, which means a number of different required pieces of documentation and forms and so on that get developed and submitted to the Department of Education for their review and approval. And then another track of different approvals associated with a potential November referendum. Again, those would happen over the next month and a half or so. As those two parallel tracks gain approval, the thought would be on the infrastructure and the IAQ work, that things would transition immediately into design work associated with that process over this fall and into early winter. Pending results of the referendum then in November, those educational improvements, the design work associated with those would start getting developed. Both of those paths would become integrated in areas of the building that are impacted by both of those. Work would be phased over the next 2+ years as far as that goes. So
So that was my question. So voters, if the voters approve this, November, you gotta put together, you know, you're not ready to, you don't start construction documents the next day. Obviously, there's more design
Right.
and planning, especially for the music, fine arts expansion. That part can happen during the school year, but most of the things that you're showing feel like they have to happen during the summer.
Yep,
And that's part of that 2.5 year, like, cycle that you're like, we have a lot of time from fall till end of May to get ready is what it sounds like.
right, so from a sequencing standpoint, if you look at the educational spaces, you're right. If the referendum were to be approved, there would be 6 to 8 months worth of design work and stakeholder input and staff input and so on to put those plans together, with the hope that likely the addition would get in the ground in fall of '26. Obviously, we can work outside of the bounds of the existing building during a school year a lot easier than anything inside.
And then completed for the 27th school year timeline?
Potentially, that's pretty aggressive, depending on how quickly we're able to
Sure.
get in the ground.
Okay.
HVAC we would be doing preparatory work in summer of '26. A lot of heavy lifting in summer of '27, and probably finishing both educational and infrastructure pieces in the summer of '28.
So I guess the point of my questions is that there's a lot of moving parts. Some of these moving parts take a lot of stakeholder and engagement. And
Absolutely.
there's several months to do, but, you know, should the board go forward and the voters approve this will be, you know, 3 years at least of ongoing work to improve and maintain these buildings. Is
Absolutely.
that a fair assumption for people to
Yes.
have? Okay.
So with that, I think we're on to just any questions that you might have on the update.
I actually did think of a money question. A little too late to keep you from going back and forth with the traffic here. Okay. Oh, okay, good. I was just curious as to the state of, you know, because we've done refinancing with bonds here recently. I just, you know, for folks that maybe don't pay a whole lot of attention to that, could you give just a general overview of what the financial markets are like right now for projects like this? Are we at normal? Are we, where do we stand?
So the district is still allowed to issue tax exempt debt, which puts you at a lower interest rate than what we typically see out in, you know, kind of commonplace in the market. So there was sort of a, was on the table maybe for a little period of time, quickly off the table to get rid of that tax exempt debt status. So because you'll be issuing tax exempt debt, the interest rates are a little bit lower than, you know, sort of the market mortgage rates that we kind of hear about on a daily basis. So we're assuming 5% interest rates. So while not the historical lows that we were seeing at the time of those refundings, and actually you have one bond that's sort of coming due for that potential, you're still at really low interest rates overall.
Okay.
And some of the strategies in this bond, you know, versus your last bond was interest only for a period of time, which was overall okay to mitigate the tax impact while having those historical lows. There is principal being paid off in every one of the years, which then helps with the overall accumulation of interest throughout the period of time. And the portion that's board approved is 17 years, so a little bit shorter overall.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to talk to me? You want me to do it? Yep. Okay. One more thing is we were differentiating between the board approved authority and the voter approved. The way the board authority is coming through with your LTF plan, you're gonna approve that bond when you do those LTF plans this summer. And we will send over the proposed debt schedule to MDE so that those debt levies will be on your preliminary levy for September 30th. So when your taxpayers get their notices of their potential tax statements, they will see the increase for the board approved portion. So that portion, so that $107 on a $200,000 home will come through
already, so they can see what it's at, and their decision then will really be based on that additional $86 per year for the voter-approved part. Okay.
All right, so it's gonna be our job to make sure it's clear what they're being asked to increase their taxes for. And it sounds like, working this for a while, but you've tracked them separately this whole time, and I think, looking at this, it's fleshed out, but that's just something we'll have to remember to continue to be, it's confusing stuff. It was confusing when we did the bond for the CTE building, which is why it's not as confusing to me now, but I think that's a key point we just need to remember.
Yeah, there's a lot of different traffic coming from different sources as far as the checkbooks that we write things out of and the sources that we get our money from. So it's not like our household finances where, things are in a little bit smaller scale. This is a real juggling act, but I know this is one of the things that I think we've gotten compliments on in the past, and the way we've done our projects in the past is that it's all been really well thought out, and that we've gotten a bang for our buck, with our elementary edition and with our CT edition since I've been on the board. That you've done your due diligence and good job in figuring out the avenues for us, and it's not anything that is a severe, backbreaking kind of burden for anybody. It's just a really good investment is what it's turned out to be, and I'm pretty positive that's the road we're headed down here too.
I'll just add, as Pat alluded to, this has been a year in progress, and I want to commend the board for their thoughtfulness and impact, the roles that you've had from ICS and Ehlers in keeping us informed to make sure that we have all the information for our board here to make the best decision for the future of our districts and the experience that we provide for our students. And as Dan alluded to, we're confident we've arrived at a scope that allows us to do that while keeping our buildings in a healthy, viable state for many, many decades to come by doing this now rather than waiting to the point of disrepair. Our buildings are in great shape. Tyler Garrison, our Director of Buildings and Grounds, and his crew, they do a phenomenal job of diverting a lot of things. Their skill sets take them well beyond what our expectations are, and we're grateful for that. And this allows them to continue to operate in a space to keep our buildings operating the way they need to be. So we're looking forward to continued dialogue and providing information to the public, and making sure we answer any and all questions that are there, with your help and support, obviously, to put our constituents in a most informed manner, should the board decide to formally move forward with a question and ask for support from the public. So it's been a great process. We continue to look forward to the rest of the process, and are grateful for our partnerships that we've established with each of your entities throughout. So thank you for the work you do, and the partnership that we have, because it definitely helps keep us informed and make, again, like I said, the best decisions possible for the future of our district.
Are you guys leaving the poster boards behind for the district office to put them on display?
Sounds like a yes.
All right. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, thank you, and thank you very much for your time this evening and throughout this whole process. We move on to Superintendent's report and calendar. Superintendent.
Thanks,
Trano.
Nicole. I'll keep this brief. Our final enrollment report of the 24-25 school year, our ending total enrollment was 1,723 students. That's higher than what we ended a year ago at the 1,691. So that's a positive sign. Interestingly, in the last 3 years, we've had our most vast range of fluctuation in our enrollment throughout that. Another update, as I alluded to the work that Tyler and his team does, we meet monthly, and last week we were able to connect just to get a scope of all the summer work, that continues to go on over the summer months. A lot of things done from a safety standpoint. One of the things they were required to do is update the flooring in each of the outdoor concession stands. That was required by OSHA, I believe, for us to do that, so that's been done. A variety of summer painting projects that we do for annual maintenance. One of the things we did a year ago, we replaced the goalposts at our football field. We are going to repurpose the old ones, and those will be reinstalled this summer, so not a new purchase, but it'll look new signage at the elementary school, indicating that this is Fairmont Area Schools, Fairmont Elementary and District Office site. The sign will look similar to the one on the corner of Johnson Street and the entry to the junior-senior high school. So both signs will be similar. It's not lit or anything extravagant, but we'll update that to accurately reflect the operations that take place in this building. We're doing a lot of research throughout the summer months too. Eventually, you will see some new scoreboards at our practice football fields at the elementary school and junior-senior high school. Those are donated. Those are not coming out of school district funds, but we're grateful for that donation in partnership with the Fairmont Youth Football Association. We're going to research some indoor portable bleachers for the elementary school. We had some funds donated also for an irrigation project for our varsity softball field. Through some partnership agreements, we're able to fund a gym bleacher addition under the concession stand area at the junior-senior high school, so that'll be in the works thanks to some of our partnership donations there. And then roofing updates across the district, which were alluded to as part of our project, but will be continual. All of our custodial maintenance staff is now full daytime shifts, so a lot of work being done throughout our buildings, and continue to be grateful for the work that they do. One update to the upcoming school board schedule. Our next board meeting was originally scheduled for Tuesday, July 8th. We're going to move that July meeting back to Tuesday, July 22nd, and that will take place right here at 5:15 p.m. in the elementary school budroom.
Thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Trado? All right, we'll move on to financial business. We have donations in Appendix A.
Yeah, for Appendix A, resolutions for donations as provided for in Minnesota statutes. Be it resolved that Fairmont Area Schools Board of Education gratefully accept the following donations or grants: from Janelle Cunning, $10; from the Jewish Community Relations Council of Minnesota and the Dakotas, $250; from Cole Papers, $200; and from Linda Ullman, $25, all donations which were received for the Anne Frank Tree Project. And so that's for the fencing and the landscaping and the little interpretive display out there. So with great thanks to all of those folks, I would move for a acceptance of those donations.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Dan, a second by Jen. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Jen?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Mike?
Aye.
Shayna?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. And we'll move on to financial reports and bills. Jessica?
You have a couple different check runs in front of you, as well as the wire and transfers from May 22nd to June 4th. Does anybody have any questions on any of the bills at all? Wire transfers were just our normal payroll ACHs.
Okay, thank you. If there's no questions or discussion,
I'll make a
entertain
motion to
Thank you, Jen.
approve the wire transfers for 5/22/2025 to 6/4/25, and the multiple May single checks, and the June 10, 2025 bills.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Jen, second by Shayna. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to Appendix B, which is our revised and preliminary budget. Jessica?
Okay. Yes, so, with this year's legislation, we were down to the wire. They didn't pass a bill on time, and so I think they're just finally working through the final procedures. school boards have to pass a budget by July 1st, and so that's what we are here to do. This is based on a lot of assumptions on what was going to happen with our federal government, with our state government. And so as we learn more, we will make adjustments to this. See if I can get full screen. Okay. Good. All right. So a school district's enrollment is the single most important factor in determining our revenues. As Andy had alluded to, the last couple of years, we've had quite a jump in our enrollment. We ended 23-24 with about 1,790 students. For 24-25, the last numbers that we had looked at before final, we're at 1,828 ADMs, so not necessarily pupils, but average daily membership. And we are looking at about 1,779 for our 25-26. So we're anticipating that to go down. We'll have more information, once we get enrollment numbers this fall. As far as general fund, that is pretty much the bulk of the district's operations. When we talk about the ADMs, and there's pupil unit weights, kindergartens and grades 1 through 6 get a 1.0, and grades 7 through 12 get a 1.2. So, for example, our high school students get 1.2 pupil units, so we would get 1.2 times 7,481, or 8,977 per student. Again, the general ed basic formula is the largest source of revenue, providing about $18 million anticipated in 25-26. For fiscal year 26, the state legislature did approve a 2.74% increase in funding formula. And so that gets us $7,481 per pupil. The big thing to note on the general revenues by source, we are looking at the same amount for federal aids. We just had a little bit of ESSER funds that we utilized in our 24-25 budget, but we won't have any more in 25-26. So the main part of our federal aids are all of our title programs, of which, again, we're not sure if we're going to get funding for that. With the state aids, you'll see the percentage is about the same between the two budgets. And like I said, one thing to note with our enrollment, that if we go down potentially 49 students, it's over $300,000, $400,000. So you can see, like I said, our general aid state aids make up 79% of our total revenue. And then we just have the expenditures by program, which we can see the instructional, vocation, special ed, instructional support, pupil support. So our teachers, our paras, anything with instruction takes up the bulk of our $27.6 million expenditures in our general fund. This just shows that salaries make up about half of our overall expenditures. Benefits come in at about 17%, and then our purchase services are about 21% of our overall expenditures. Food service fund, we're not really anticipating anything different. If anything, we will continue to try to deficit spend in our food service account just to meet the state's requirement of keeping the fund balance low. And we're excited with Taher helping us do that in the next couple of years. Same thing, there's pretty much in the food service fund, the majority is going to be our food, and it's going to be our purchase services since we contract with a food service management company. Community ed, not much change there from year to year. Again, majority is made up of our state aids and levy. Debt service fund, which is what Ellers alluded to over there. So there's our breakdown of principal and interest over the next through 38-39 school year. And then here is the majority of it. So the preliminary budget for 25-26, with where we're currently at, we're looking at a $264,000 approximate decrease of our fund balance in the general fund. And overall, through all funds, about $463,000 decrease in fund balance. $184,000 comes from our food service fund.
Which we need to spend down.
Which
So
we
that's-
are, correct, we have to spend down. So I think the last letter that I got from the state said we had about $700 and some thousand of excess fund balance. So that will be a deficit for quite a while, and that is okay because we have to spend that down.
So from like a, I don't call it cash flow or reality, it's about a negative 264 preliminary budget.
Correct, yep. Like I said, as we learn more, as the state comes out, we'll continually adjust, looking at the budget and adjust, but the board is required to approve a budget by July 1st each year.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary budget as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike, second by Jen. Any discussion?
I just say thank you to Jessica for her diligent work on this. There's a lot of information to take in when presenting it, and, you know, as we've looked at our future financial planning, we have had to make some difficult decisions, and as noted in our last May board meeting, we are continually trying to reduce expenditures to align within the revenues that we have from the state. And even with those decisions that we made, you're being asked to propose or to support a budget that we're anticipating could be another deficit spend next year. When the dust settles at the federal and state level, we're hoping that corrects itself to some degree. But at the same time, we need to be continually mindful of that and strategic about our decisions to continue to keep us in a sound financial state moving forward. So thank you, Jessica, for all your work on that and the consideration you've given to all the details behind the scenes for our budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. And now we will move on to, we have no old business, so we'll move on to new business. We have the Minnesota State High School League Membership Resolution, Appendix C.
Yeah, by September 1st of each year, we as a board must approve renewing our district's membership in the Minnesota State High School League, which helps to provide scholarships for AAA winners, training for activities directors for different schools, administrative website assistant, rules training for officials and coaches, student insurance for catastrophic injuries. The membership fee is assessed in mid-August. It's based on the number of student activities that the district sponsors. So last year's fee was approximately $1,350. I would move for us to approve the resolution as provided in Appendix C.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, because it's,
Resolution?
yeah, a resolution, we'll move to a roll call vote. Jen?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Mike?
Aye.
Shayna?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. And now we'll move on to amended school board calendar, Appendix D. And it's before you. We all know what happened with the school year. And the change, when we have very few snow days, actually. So with that, I make a motion to approve Appendix D as presented.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. And we'll move on to payroll and benefit management agreement, Appendix E.
All right, so here I'll do it. I don't know if this is annual, but we have a number of services that we provide, administrative support services we provide to Summer Plains Co-op, and then we bill it back. We bill them for what our costs are, and that's what Appendix E is outlining. So it's just a continuation of the agreement for Fairmont Area Schools concerning payroll and benefit management services. I make a motion that we adopt and approve that agreement.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mike, second by Shayna. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now we'll move on to item D, spec long-term facilities maintenance plan, Appendix F.
I make a motion to table this to our July meeting because it doesn't contain Exhibit A outlining their projects, and I was ill at their last meeting. I can't tell you what they are. And the deadline is at the end of July, so I think that would be the most appropriate way to handle that. But
I'll second that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item E, participation fees and admission fees. Shayna?
Looks like the operation committee reviewed fees at the June 3rd meeting and recommended the following adjustments for the 25-26 school year for consistency. Football will be just decreased by $5, now $130 to match all other activities listed in the same category. Cheerleading increased by $10, now $130 to match all the other activities in the same category. And speech decreased by $10, now $60 to match all the other activities in the same categories. Robotics and debate were added with a $60 participation fee. Both of these activities are sanctioned by the Minnesota State High School League. You'll have to see Appendix G, but I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to be carried to approve the student activities fees and admission fees for the 25-26 school year.
Thank you. Shayna, do we have a second? Thank you, Mike. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just to also note that we are not increasing our admissions fees for our events for the upcoming school year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Any
you have the fees on one side, and then the activities and admission fees are on the other, and those are to remain unchanged, with students being able to attend for free, adults $7, seniors age 60 and over $5 to get in, and free admission is provided to all Fairmont staff members with an employee ID as well. These are almost identical to all of the schools that are in the Big South Conference with us. A few of them are actually higher, but this is what we see for the section and for our conference. So,
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, extra duty worker stipends, Appendix H.
The Operation Committee reviewed fees at the June 3rd meeting as well and recommended a $10 increase to all extra duty worker stipend positions for the 25-26 school year in Appendix H. I'll make a motion to approve the extra duty work stipends for 25-26 school year.
second.
We have a motion by Jen, second by Mike. Any discussion?
I have to abstain from this vote because I am, I do some of these, so I cannot vote on this.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have the authorization for MDE review and comment and long-term facility maintenance plan development, Appendix H.
So we need to,
I'm sorry,
G,
no appendix.
we need to approve this so they can start the regulatory work on the LTFM component of our, what we just talked about?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to authorize the Minnesota Department of Education review and comment on the long-term facilities maintenance plan developments as presented to the board at this meeting.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to personnel, employment. Let's see.
Yes, Principal Rosen has recommended that Madison Sin be hired as elementary first grade teacher, effective date August 25th, 2025. And I move for that approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resignation, we have a resignation from Gabriela Mila Ramos. an elementary paraprofessional effective June 6, 25, and Megan Jameron, elementary paraprofessional effective 6/6/2025. I make a motion to approve that.
Second.
We have a motion by myself, second by Mike. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board committee reports, Operations Committee, Mike?
Pretty much most of what we did at our last meeting, which was Tuesday, June 3rd. We just had it as our business for this meeting today. ICS was there, provided materials. We've had many meetings with them, but we saw a pre-draft of what was presented to you today, and we gave them feedback, and some changes were made. Talked about the budget. We were maybe hoping that the legislature would have provided some final guidance between then and now, but we didn't think that was actually going to happen. So that was kind of talked about in detail, both for the year, where we're at for this current year, but also for the next fiscal year, which was, the next fiscal year was kind of the cuts that we were talking about the last several meetings here. And then we had great discussion on the activities fees and extra duty pay. We understand that that's a thing that is complicated. A lot, families that have multiple kids, what other schools doing. So we always talk about it. We always try to get data from what other people are doing. So if they, for example, they're doing something ill-advised, we wouldn't copy that. If they're doing something smart, we would copy it. And so every year, Matt Mahoney was there to talk about things as well. So I think twice a year we probably get into the weeds on that a little bit, so you don't have to hear us talk about it here. And that is the summation of the operations.
Yeah, we did get a list from Matt of what all of the schools in our conference, and many of them in our area, do charge for their students for athletics and other activities. And that is one place where it is very different from place to place and town to town, depending on board action. So, that is something we could definitely revisit in the future. Some places are quite spendy, and some have gone the route of trying to make it completely free or putting a cap on it for families. So I think in the future, once we get our budget sorted out, that's something we can look at.
Yes, thank you, Dan. Any questions?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mike. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.